Good morning, everyone. This is Jennifer Franklin, and I am going to be helping out in this meeting with Amy Yocopicio. Sally Potter is our presenter. I'm looking for our sign language interpreters. Susie gave me the names of two interpreters, but I don't think I am seeing them yet.
Hi,
Who?
I'm one of the interpreters here, Shannon and Stephen. I'll put our names on there.
Okay, that would be very helpful. Okay, so
I had it as interpreter. Sorry about that. 1 minute, please.
okay, I see it. Oh, Stephen, you were in our humanities division meeting yesterday. Good.
Okay, very good. We're all set.
Okay, and is it just you and Shannon on the
And
same camera?
Yeah, we're just one camera, so it's easier for you. We'll just be trading
Oh, excellent,
less work for you. Good.
excellent. Okay.
Okay, are we ready to get started? Okay, so let me welcome you this morning. Thank you for getting up bright and early on a Friday morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, time to start getting up early. So let me welcome you to my presentation on OER. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sally Potter. I am an instructor here at Fresno City College. I've been teaching at Fresno City. My first class that I taught was in 1999, back when I was still a grad student at Fresno State. And I taught adjunct for 15 years or so. And then I got a full-time position in 2012, and then I have been working here at Fresno City for the past few years in the EMLS and Linguistics Department in the Humanities Division. And then for the past year, I have been working for the ASCCC OERI as the liaison to the ASCCC from Fresno City College. And just recently, I was given the position of regional lead for Area A. So this is a new position for me. I'm just starting out, but I'm pretty excited to represent Fresno City College in this capacity. So I usually do a OER presentation every Flex Day, and this is my second one doing a webinar online. Pretty excited, and I'm glad to have you all here this morning. Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing this morning, just to give you all an idea. The presentation is going to cover these items. First, we're going to just kind of look at, what are we talking about when we're talking about OER? What exactly is that? And for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm going to introduce you to a new term, ZTC. This goes hand in hand with OER. And just kind of the differences between those and what that means, and just, what we're really talking about. And then, why should we use it? What are some of the advantages for students and for instructors? And then I want to show you, how to find, where to find these materials. And then once you find them, what to do with them. And then we're going to do a little activity. So I'm hoping that we'll have, a good 20 minutes at the end of this presentation, at least, so that I can walk you through some of the steps of this activity and to kind of get you started. So the goal here today is, not for you to completely change your plan for your course and just say, okay, I'm throwing away my textbook for this semester and I'm going to, adopt a brand new textbook. All my materials are out the door. That is not something that you can do on the Friday before the semester starts. That's not realistic. The goal here today is to introduce you to some of the places where you can find some of these materials, and then to get you to start thinking about incorporating some of these materials as supplementary materials into your existing course. And then you hopefully can kind of start taking advantage of some of these free and openly licensed materials that are out there, so that you can enhance your current course and then possibly in the future take baby steps towards reducing the cost or even eliminating the cost for your students in the future. Okay, so just to give you a heads up right now, I assume that most of the people who are here with us this morning are instructors who are actively teaching a course. If that's true, start, kind of thinking about if you teach more than one course, which course you want to kind of focus on. So maybe, if you teach more than one different course, maybe which one isn't as developed, or which one you're not as comfortable with, which one you don't have as many materials in, and then just kind of have that in your mind, what areas are kind of lacking in that course. We are going to look at the course outline of record. I'll show you where to find that if you don't know, and take a look at your SLOs and objectives. So we'll get into that, but just so you have that kind of in your mind as we go through the first part of the presentation. Okay, so what is OER? Okay, so that's the first thing that I want to let you know about. So what open refers to is the license. Open could be free, but it's not necessarily talking about the cost. So it really is talking about who owns the license of the material. And don't just think about traditional textbooks when we're talking about open materials. So we're talking about videos, Canvas modules, assignments, quizzes, all kinds of different materials that you can use, including ancillary materials. And what I mean by that are those homeworking systems. So for example, there is something called it's called the My Math Lab. There's something called Open Lab, or what is it called? My Open Lab. I can't remember the exact name, but basically it is a homeworking system that goes along with the openly licensed math textbook, and it's a homeworking system that math teachers can adopt. And so this, again, this is it's all free for students. It's a digital material, and it's not something that is like a bound textbook. Okay, so when we're talking about open materials, we're talking about the license of the materials. Now, there could be some costs associated with open materials. So for example, some instructors want their students to have a physical copy of a book. Many, for example, English instructors want their students to have a physical copy of a book so that they can make annotations in the book. And the material or the book that they are having the students buy could be openly licensed, but it would be maybe a less expensive book than a commercial textbook or commercial book. So the cost associated with that would be the paper, the ink, the cost associated with printing the materials. And many of these, in fact, most of the textbooks that you're going to see that are available with open licenses, they can be purchased. They have ISBN numbers. They can be purchased on a number of different websites, including Amazon. Many of them can be purchased through our bookstore. So they do have ways to purchase these. And again, there would be some costs associated with them, but it would be the difference between maybe a $100 textbook and a $20 textbook. Okay, now here's, this might be a new term for some of you, zero textbook cost. So this has to do with the cost to students. So a material could be open and not necessarily free. And then you could have a material that is free, but not necessarily open. So, and then some materials could be both open and free. And those would be openly licensed digital materials. But materials that are going to be free for students are going to be anything that they can get at the library. So our students pay their student services fee, and in that they are entitled to all of our library materials. So you can go as an instructor and get those materials, package those materials for them, create PDFs of those materials, and as long as you put it behind a paywall of Canvas, or email it to students, or hand it out in class on paper, that is perfectly legal to do. Also, things like websites, things that are free, as long as it's not behind a paywall, you can make a copy of that as long as you give the source, including the link to it, and you can make paper copies of those and hand them out in class. You can post those up on Canvas. You do have to, beware of accessibility issues. And when you do something like link to a website, most websites that you're going to be linking to, commercial websites, are not very accessible for students. So students who are using screen readers are going to have real trouble with those. So if you can take the text, turn it into a nice Word document that uses styles and is nice, and easy for a screen reader to read, that's actually preferable than linking out to an inaccessible website. And then another thing that you can do is you can write your own. Now what I'm not talking about writing a full 400-page textbook. That's not what I mean. I'm going to show you some examples of just little snippets of things that you can write. So this is something that I did to a limited extent. I worked with one of my colleagues, and then I did kind of my own thing. I just kind of put my lecture thoughts down on paper, okay? And so it was sort of a book that I wrote, and I had that published. I had it printed in the bookstore, and then had students purchase it. It was a 46-page book, and it cost about $1.30 for students to purchase. So those are some examples of zero textbook cost. Okay, so just to review, OER versus ZTC. Again, sometimes there's overlaps, but there are differences between the two. So I just wanted you to be aware and to think about how you can use these two different kinds of materials. Okay, I have a video for you. It's about 6 minutes long. It talks about the Creative Commons licenses. Now, I'm going to show you this video because it does give kind of the history and the reasoning behind the licensing. The licensing is probably one of the more intimidating things about using OER, but it really, I think, is mainly confusing if you're going to be creating your own materials. If you are using materials, the only thing that you really have to think about is just making sure that you keep the same license. So you just have to make sure that you keep the little annotation at the bottom. Just make sure that it stays on there, and if you can do that, then you're good. So you don't have to fully understand them, but just in case, I want to show this to you. It's also a pretty entertaining video. So let's go ahead and watch. Let's see here.
These are Jack and Meg White, also known as the White Stripes. They're They're a band from Detroit. They make rock and roll without a bass guitarist. This is Steve McDonald of the veteran band Red Cross. Steve thought the White Stripes could use a bass player, so he appointed himself. He took the White Stripes album called White Blood Cells and re-recorded it, laying a bass track down on every song. Then he released the results as MP3s on Red Cross's website. He even made up a new album cover entitled Red Blood Cells. McDonald began putting these copyrighted songs online without permission from the White Stripes or their record label. During the project, he bumped into Jack White, who gave him spoken assent to continue. It can be that easy when you skip the intermediaries. Collaboration across space and time. Creative co-authorship with people you've never met. Standing on the shoulders of your peers. It's what the internet is all about. It can be that easy when you skip the intermediaries. But couldn't it be easier still? Not many of us are liable just to bump into Jack White and get the green light. And he's not going to let just anyone play the bass over your songs in any case. But what about other artists who might want you or me to play along? Shouldn't we be able to, if they don't mind? Enter one of the internet's most famous citizens. A face familiar the world over, a public identity rivaled only by a handful of corporate giants and global superstars, the Big Copyright C. Everyone knows what Big C stands for. Big C means all rights reserved. Big C means ask permission. Big C protects copyright owners and notifies the rest of us of their ownership. Time was when you had to put Big C on anything you wanted to copyright, or else it entered the public domain, the commons of information where nothing is owned and all is permitted. You had to put the world on notice to warn them. That was Big C's job, and it was a useful one. What changed? The law. By the late 1980s, US law had changed so that works become copyrighted automatically the moment they're made. The moment you hit save on that research paper, the second the shutter snaps closed, the instant you lift your pen from that cocktail napkin doodle, your creation is copyrighted, whether Big C makes a cameo or not. So suddenly, there's no quick way of knowing whether something's owned or not. The new rules may be clear about how you get to own a work. You don't have to do anything, but they say nothing at all about how you should go about announcing that you want to allow certain uses of your work. So what? Well, if you're a digital filmmaker whose every frame must be cleared by an army of lawyers before making the cut, or if you're in a band whose label won't let you put a song on the file sharing network, or if you're a professor trying to put together online course materials, or if you're a DJ chasing down permission to use every snippet of song in your sonic collage, if you're one of these people, then you know, so what? We interrupt this brainstorm to call the lawyers. You drop what you're doing and call all the lawyers. You ask for permission, even to use a work whose author doesn't mind if you use it, because you have no idea what the author's intent is. You ask for permission, even to share some of your rights. Or you venture forward unsure what your risks and rights are exactly. Or in a haze of legal doubt, you do nothing. The bottom line, Big C is out of a job. The middlemen are not. Enter Creative Commons. Creative Commons wanted to find an easy way to help people tell the world up front that they want to allow some uses of their work. We called the experts, the US Copyright Office, for advice. Their response? There's no real answer. Get creative. So we got creative. How? Our CC brand marks works that are governed by Creative Commons licenses, a set of standardized copyright licenses available free of charge on our website. We wrote these licenses so that lawyers and courts could read them. Then we translated them into a language you can read. And then we translated them into a language computers can read. Now, CC isn't meant to compete with copyright, but to complement it. It allows you to retain your copyright while granting the world permission to make certain uses of it upon certain conditions. If the big C is like a red light, then CC is a green light. If the big C says no trespassing, the double C says, please come in. If the big C says all rights reserved, CC says some rights reserved. So you can use the powers of the net to find works free to share and build upon, and to invite other people to transform or trade yours so that you can get creative, not only with what you make, but how you make it available. So you can collaborate across space and time. So you can be a co-author with someone you've never met. So you can stand on the shoulders of your peers, all without asking permission, because permission has already been granted. Creative Commons. Get creative. It's easy when you skip the intermediaries.
Okay, so let me, it looks like there's some activity in the chat here. Let's see.
Sally, I think we
yes.
have one question from Cynthia.
OpenStax.
Yeah.
Yeah, OpenStax question. That is a little beyond my pay grade right here. That would be something that I'd have to look into more specifically. So Cynthia, maybe we can chat afterwards, or you can contact me after to find out a little bit more about that. Yeah, that's a little bit more specific, but yeah, we'll have time to chat about that. And I do have a couple places here. I was just telling Jennifer and Amy, my facilitators, that at the beginning, I've like, don't worry about the chat at the beginning. I will tell everyone, you know, about my policy about the chat and the questions, and I completely forgot about it. So I do have a couple places in the PowerPoint where I'm going to stop for questions. It's just really hard for me to monitor the chat at the same time. So if you do have some questions, you can go ahead and write them in here. I might not be able to see everything. But I will stop, and if it's a quick, easy question, I will answer it. If I don't get a chance to do that, if it's something that's a little more complicated, we can make a plan to meet later, or figure out how we're going to answer that, and go from there. But we should have time at the end as well. Okay. So these are the different licenses. So I don't want to get into the weeds too much here because like I said, these are really most important if you are going to be writing something. If you are just going to use something, then you really just have to kind of understand, the bare bones and what you can do with it. Down here at the bottom, this is an example of what a license would look like, an attribution would look like. So what you would do is you'd have your article or your, whatever your material, and then at the very bottom of the page, or the Canvas page, or the actual printed page, this would be just printed somewhere on there. And then if it's digital, it does have the links. And I'm going to show you the way to build this. There's a real easy way to do that. The good news is when you're using most sources that you find will already have this. So you don't have to build this yourself. You can just copy it. But this is basically what they mean. The little person with by means that you have to put the author's name. The author, or in this case, it's the organization Creative Commons is the author. So that's what, you just have to make sure that you put that. If it's, and most every source is going to have that. And then share alike, that's the other one that most every source is going to have. That means that it has to be shared with the same license. Okay, so if, for example, if someone puts non-commercial, means you can't sell it, that means that another person can't turn around and then sell it. Okay, so that's just what that means. Non-commercial just means you can't sell it. No derivative is unusual. Most of the sources will allow you to edit, okay? So, you know, what this is the author, whoever made this, is just telling you what you're allowed to do with it. And again, most people who are involved in the OER community, who are sharing their sources, their resources, their materials that they made, you know, they're just instructors, they're just professors, they're just people who just made something, and they just say, you know what, it may not be 100% perfect, but I use it, I like it, and I'm just gonna allow colleagues who I either know or don't know to take it, use it if they want it, improve it if they want it, or use it as is if they want. Okay, that's the idea behind it. Okay, let's see here. So here's an attribution builder, and there are you know, several of these on the internet that you can find. These are really similar to like an APA or an MLA citation builder. You just enter the information and then it just creates your little attribution down here at the bottom. It's that simple. You don't have to do that. But like I said, you usually don't have to do that. And that would only be if you are writing or creating your own. Like I said, most of the time when you're using a source, you don't have to do this because it's already on there. You just either copy it, or if you're taking something, for example, from Creative Commons, I'm going to show you, it automatically just puts it on there. Okay. Okay, so at this point, just really quickly, before I move on to the next, next question. I'm really not familiar with you know, music theory or the White Stripes, so please don't ask me any questions about that. But any quick questions? And you can just go ahead and unmute and shout it out if you'd like, or you can type it. Okay, we'll go on. Okay, so why do we do this? Now, I'm not going to belabor this point too much. I will spend a little time with you on this. I know that you didn't get up at 8 a.m. on a Friday morning before the semester starts because you don't know the reason why. This is the main reason why. Okay, textbooks are pricey, textbooks are expensive. In fact, they're more expensive than when I was in college. I don't know when you were in college, but I was in college somewhere towards the middle bottom down there. When the lines were much closer together than they are now. And of course, this is much, you know, very much out of date. And if it was into, you know, 2020, it would be even worse now. But this just is terrible, okay? Textbooks are outrageous. So when we're saying, you know, you hear people saying, well, you know, when I was in college, you know, I worked a part-time job and I was able to pay, you know, for all my textbook, it was no issue. I got financial aid, and students get financial aid. It wasn't a problem for me. This is just not really the case anymore. Okay. It's just not the same world. 15, 20 years ago, textbooks are much, much more expensive than they were back then. So just something to keep in mind, okay? In fact, when you look at the cost of all, and again, this is very much out of date, it would be even worse. And, you know, this is not even including, you know, the events and tragedies of this past year, well, last year, I guess. Let's knock on wood on that. But, you know, all of the costs associated with getting a college degree are much more expensive than they were. So just something to keep in mind. You know, many people believe or think that students get, you know, a lot of financial aid, or the financial aid that they get is, you know, in the form of like a gift certificate for the bookstore. you know, for some programs that may be true. So for some programs, you know, they may have vouchers, but it's very few. Most of the time they get money and they are supposed to spend it on costs related to school, okay? For most students, their cost of textbooks exceeds what they get. So if they're going to school full time, if they're taking 15 or 18 units, what they're paying in textbooks exceeds what they get in financial aid. And so then they have to make a decision. You know, now they have to pay for textbooks out of pocket. Okay, so they're going to have to make decisions now. The decisions that they make might be that they forego purchasing the textbook for your class. They may just say, you know what, this class seems like I could probably pass it with a C without buying the textbook. I'm going to gamble and I'm going to try that. Students do that. They might, you know, purposely buy an old edition because it's like $5 and it can't be that bad, right? It can't be that out of date. It's got to have some good stuff and it's better than nothing. And, you know, and then we get so frustrated when they're doing this, but they've made that decision. That is the decision that they've made. 3 years ago, Reedley College did a survey, and it was in week 4 of the semester. They surveyed students and they just, you know, asked some questions. You know, how many of you are able to buy your textbooks? How many of you, you know, were not? Did you have to drop classes? And they got a bunch of data. And, you know, the data was really depressing and revealing, showed that a lot of students weren't purchasing their books, weren't purchasing their books on time. But the real depressing part of it, or the real eye-opening part of it, were the comments, okay? And I want to show you some of this comments. So these are Reedley College students, so students from our community. These are the open-ended comments. So the comments that the question that they just gave them after asking questions about their textbook costs was just, what else do you want to say about textbook costs? And I'm just going to show you these comments, and I'm going to have you just sit and read through these. Okay, they're difficult, but just bear with me. Okay, not done yet. Okay, and then the following year, the same instructor and a DE coordinator at Reedley did a survey of students who were using OER in their classes, and these were some of the comments that they got. So these are comments from students who were in classes when OER was used. They did not have to purchase a textbook. Okay, now, let's go. So now we see, of course, for students, right? It's obvious. I want you to think about yourself though. What was the criteria that you used to choose your current textbook? And I will tell you about my journey and how I came to use OER. I was at the online teaching conference. I believe it was in 2016, and I just stumbled into one of the workshops on OER. Didn't really, had heard of it, but didn't really know too much about it. And this was one of the activities. It was look up, get on your college's website and look up your textbook. I'm not going to walk you through the steps, but if you would like to do that, or you can do it later, I really want you to do this. So in all of our, everything that we see as instructors, when we are ordering our books from our side, whether it was back when we were using the paper forms or now, with the Follett ordering system, whether we're dealing with exam copies and talking to the reps, there is no time or place when we are ever looking at, unless we explicitly and intentionally look it up, see the cost of the book to students. And so I teach linguistics, and there's like 3 textbooks that we use for intro to linguistics. One is kind of like, it's so basic that you have to, just add like so many supplemental materials. One is kind of like, it's almost like half of it is too advanced. So the one that I chose was kind of in the middle. It was sort of like the least worst one. It wasn't great. I didn't love it, but I just, it was okay. And, I just used it over the years. I developed my, assignments around it. And I, when I started teaching online, I developed my online assignments around it. I had my whole course, developed around it. And I, just never really thought about how much it was. I kind of imagined in my head that it was maybe around $30, $35. I thought that's probably what it was. When I actually looked it up in this workshop, I found out it was $112. So this crappy, least worst, not great. I didn't really like it. I wasn't really using, I was using about half of it, and then supplementing a lot of my own stuff. I was charging students, making students pay $112. And that really made me just say, you know what, I'm going to take steps to not do this anymore. And so from that point on, not right away, it took some time, I started to replace the chapters that I could. And then I took more steps to replace more, and I just phased out my textbook. And then one semester, it was a summer, a 6-week course, I just cut it off and I just went cold turkey without it. And I just built and used all other materials, okay? Think about what would be like a perfect textbook. What would, if you could create your own textbook, what would that take? How much work would that be? How would you get that? How would you create that? Okay, just kind of, imagining in your mind. Okay, so some of advantages for instructors. Now, of course, it's work. It is some work. For some disciplines, there is an off-the-shelf book that you can just take and replace your textbook. If you teach sociology, if you teach psychology, if you teach math, there are these huge OpenStax books and many other disciplines. Not all disciplines have that though. Now these books are made, they're huge, okay? They're monstrous because they put everything in the kitchen sink in there, thinking that instructors would be able to pick and choose, the pieces of the book that they want their students to be able to use, but they are there, okay? My kid's doing something in the kitchen. Oh my goodness. That's not the case for everyone. It's certainly not the case for linguistics. Okay, that didn't happen. There, it was some work. Okay, but there are some advantages. So, for example, when I first started teaching, when I, first became a college instructor, I got this textbook and I started with chapter 1. First week, I taught chapter 1, went through chapter 1, then I did chapter 2. Then when we're done with chapter 2, I did chapter 3, and that's how I taught. As I got to be a better instructor and as SLOs became a bigger part of my life, then I started to, think more strategically about what I was teaching, change the order, brought in more supplemental materials, switch things around. But then now it's more, now I'm kind of fighting with the textbook, right? Now I'm kind of like doing like chapter 13, then chapter 10, and chapter 11, and going back to chapter 2, 3, and kind of moving it around. I'm working against it. So one of the advantages of this is that I can actually start with my objectives, not start with this textbook that some publisher or whoever has thought of, but I can actually start with my objectives and I can teach to those. And I know what I used to do and what many instructors do is they have this textbook and you've made your students buy it and you use, some of it or about half of it, and you feel kind of guilty that you haven't used all of it. So you assign more work or more exercises or more reading from this textbook that students don't really need to do just because you've made them buy it, okay? It just eliminates all that. You don't have to do that. You can teach only what you need to teach and be much, much more efficient, okay? This is another huge thing. So on day 1, even before day 1, okay? So right now, my classes are open to my students. I just, last night, I published my courses, and right now, all of my students have access to everything that they need for the first week. They don't have to purchase anything. They don't have to wait for anything. There's no reason that they have to wait. They can get started right away. This is also true for face-to-face classes when they're coming to campus. They just immediately, there's no going into the division office and trying to make copies. There's no crossing my fingers and hoping production office doesn't catch me trying to make copies of that first chapter for the students that didn't, that are waiting for the financial aid checks. There's none of that, okay? First day, everybody has it. The materials, especially in the complete textbooks, are very much peer reviewed, just like traditional textbooks. When you get into some of like the Creative Commons, well, that's a little bit of a different story. We'll talk about that. So once you create something, then the ownership is yours forever and ever. You don't have to worry about anything changing. Moving to a new edition is never going to surprise you. You are in complete and total control of that. Okay, so now we're going to go into some of the how part. And I do want to kind of show you some of this stuff. I'm going to go pretty quickly here through part of this, and then we'll go back and I'll take you back through some of the steps, okay? So first we'll go really quick, and then I'll go back and kind of walk you through some of these. I know many of you are already familiar with how to, find things on Commons and how to find these different sources, but so that's where we're gonna go fast and then slow, okay? Okay, so first thing is, again, depending on your discipline. Some disciplines you can find a textbook, you can check it out. You can, it's there. It's, takes, just browsing through the textbook make up your mind, decide to switch it. And then it's just a matter of, okay, now I've got this new textbook. Now I just need to kind of, change my course around it, which is, it's not no work to do that. Okay. It does require work, especially if you've been teaching a long time to one textbook. But when you consider the advantages for students, it's really, really, something that I want to have you think about. Even if you are not thinking of doing this right now, I do want to encourage you to try to find a piece of a textbook. So, if you can find an OpenStax textbook that is in your discipline, if you can look in that textbook, you can actually take, a piece of that and make, a chapter or even like a few pages, create a PDF of that, and you can, take that PDF and you can give it to your students. If we're on campus, you can make a handout and give it to them, or you can, make a digital copy and give that to them in Canvas. So I want you to think about, doing something like that, using a piece of a textbook if you're not thinking about replacing your entire thing. Okay, individual content pieces. Now this is for other disciplines that don't have these, go-to already designed, full textbooks. This is what you're going to need to do. So this is what we did for linguistics. This is a lot more work, and this is where you have to kind of start slow and go and just build piece by piece. And I'll tell you about my story, okay, doing this. So I had a colleague, she just retired, Jean Carroll, a great friend of mine in my department, and we decided that we were going to tackle our linguistics classes. So we do 2 linguistic classes. Ling 10 is Intro to Ling, Ling 11 is Intro to Ling for educators. So basically a very similar class with a little education kind of emphasis. And so she did the Ling 10, I did the Ling 11. And, so a lot of the materials were we kind of overlapped and shared. And what we did was we just kind of started with one topic and we did research. We found these different content pieces, these different pieces. We looked everywhere. We did our research. We talked to librarians. We looked online. We looked through all the repositories, and then we just shared. And I don't know if any of you know Jean, but she's a fun person, and she was getting a little, she just retired. Last spring was her last semester, and she was getting a little, senioritis toward the end there, as retirees tend to do. But but I had her dragged into this. She was so excited, like she would be coming to my office like weekly. Oh my gosh, look what I found, look at this, and emailing me stuff. And it's like, okay, great, Jean, just put it over here in the folder. I mean, we just had such a great time showing each other this, come up with videos. We found she really was better researcher than me. I just kind of took all this stuff and packaged it up, but it was really a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with it. So I want to encourage you to think about doing something like that, even though it's a lot of work. Get a partner. It's fun. This is our discipline that we love. We, have been in grad school for many, many years. And so researching this stuff was really a lot of fun, but it was really cool. Okay. Then we've got, okay. Oh, and then I'm going to show you some examples of some of the things that we did in our class. Okay, so don't worry. Okay, then we've got Canvas Commons. Okay, and I know that many of you are familiar with Canvas Commons. When you are in Canvas, there's this little button right here for the Canvas Commons. You just click that, and then it's going to take you to this search page, which is like the main search page, and then you can search your discipline or your topic, and it kind of, try some different terms. Definitely try the different filters, to see what you get. You can get, find some really, really cool stuff. The thing about Commons, this is what I always say about Commons. it's like shopping at Marshall's or Ross. Okay, so some people are going to know what I mean. It's not like a thrift store. Okay, it doesn't have a bunch of crappy stuff that's, you know, like all worn out and, you know, and there's like one thing out of 100. That's great. No, but it's also not like shopping at Macy's where everything is off the rack, beautiful and perfect. It's not like that either. It's like shopping at Ross. So it's like, you have to look through, not everything is perfect. You may not find exactly what you want, but you're probably going to find something that will do. Okay. You may have to go back several times. You may have to look in several different places in several different ways. So it's sort of in between. Okay. All right. Okay, and then we do have a Fresno City College Open Educational Resources Canvas shell that I put together. It's not super fancy, but I will show you how to get there. And really quickly, let me open that up. And I'm gonna just put this in the chat. It should be open for you. So here we go. So you should be able to go right into it. And while you are doing that, let me just see if there are any quick questions while we're here. You just have to, yeah, you just have to use the filters. Is that Marvita? I can only see, my thing is not, oh yeah, it is. Okay, I just have to open it up. Yeah, you just have to use the filters. It just kind of, you know, depends on your search terms. And I think, you know, for English, Marvita, there's so much that's out there for English. I think a lot of people don't put the filters on there. So sometimes the, you know, the filters don't, like there's no filter on it. So they don't always put the right filter on there. You share something into Commons, can students access it? No, students can't access it. When you put something into Commons, it gives you a choice of who you want to share it with. So for example, if you can share it with only the district. I don't think you can only share it with the college. You can share it with only the district. So for example, if you just want to share it with, you know, like people in your department, I guess if you don't care if like Reading and Clovis see it too, you know, you don't really want to make it like widely available. It's kind of an easy way to do that. Or you can share it, you know, across the board. Oh gosh, I can't remember if you could share it only on with at Fresno, but no, students don't have access to that. Yeah, I mean they wouldn't want to. But yeah, and I'll show you real quick how to get into there. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Okay, so here's our activity. And again, I'm going to go through the, you know, how to find the Canvas shell, how to look at those repositories, and then also, you know, a little bit more on the Canvas Commons. Just bear with me, but first we're going to look at your course outline of record on Ellumin. If you don't know where that is, so we are not using Ellumin for very long. Okay, so I'm showing you where this is on Ellumin, but just in your head, know that we're switching back to Curricunet. Ellumin is absolute garbage. So it's terrible for our purposes here. It's fine, but yeah, so we're happy about that. But this is where we're gonna find our thing. Let's see. Oh my goodness, Microsoft PowerPoint is now stopped working. Okay, that is just the worst. Okay, but but that's okay. Oh, recovery. Oh, nice, 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 nice. Okay, we're just not gonna deal with that right now. Okay, so here's what eLumen is all about. This is on the, if you're looking for this, it's on Fresno City, and then you go to faculty and staff, and then you go kind of down here under curriculum. And the easiest way to find it is the public site where you don't have to log in. And then usually for me, it's got that little button that comes up right away. It says something like, whatever, log in again or something, or refresh. So then you hit your discipline, you come back up, you choose the course, and then you choose the course outline of record, and you go down here. Okay. And then we're just going to kind of take a look at your learning objectives, your CSLOs. Now, ideally, of course, you are evaluating your CSLOs, you know, regularly. Of course, that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? But maybe there's a piece of a CSLO that you're not really hitting, something's kind of missing or lacking. Maybe there's a piece of your course objective. So when I take a look at these, well, the first thing that I notice is, thank goodness we're doing curriculum review next year, because our CSLOs are absolutely horrible and they will be rewritten. So let's see. Let's see. Well, I don't really have too much on like semantics. So that's like the worst one too. Okay. So I guess that's what I'll kind of search for. Okay. So I'm just kind of keeping that in my mind. And let's go back here. Okay, let me start here again. And oh boy, okay. Okay, hold on just a second. Okay, so identify one topic or objective of your course where you're lacking content, assessments. All righty. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the Canvas Commons. And so let me show you where that is. Okay, so let's see here. Now I'm already kind of in it. Okay, so from any Canvas page, including your dashboard, you have your commons over here. Well, I'll start with this right here. Yeah, the commons over here. So when you click that, that opens up the global navigation page, and then you can just type it. Oh, look, I searched for this before. And oh, what's this? So I can, you know, type something. Now this is not popularly or very popular topic. Let's try something that's going to get a lot more results here. History. Oh, come on. Okay, yeah, that's giving me lots of results here. Now I want to filter this. So I'm going to hit this little filter button, and now I can choose. I can choose if I want, you know, full courses. I'm not going to really recommend that. I'm going to recommend, you know, if you're looking for like assignments or, you know, quizzes, discussions, documents, videos. Sometimes I'm just looking for like a quiz on something, or sometimes I'm looking for a video. Although videos are a little weird because if there's like an assignment with a video embedded in it, then the video doesn't come up. So that's why I usually choose, if I'm looking for a content piece, I usually choose modules, assignments, quizzes, discussions, videos. and just so I'm like covering everything. And then I kind of hit, okay, 12 undergrad. I want to stay away from graduate here. And oh, here we go. Yeah, so so this is everything. This is who you're sharing it with. So this is only going to be important if you're looking for something specific. So if you're in one of these groups, or if you're looking for something that one of your colleagues shared, then you probably would switch this. Don't mess around with this right now unless you're looking for a complete textbook. There are not a whole lot of textbooks here, and this template thing is new, so there's not very many of those. So then you just hit those, and then that gives you your results, and then you can just choose whatever. And see, when this says all grades, that means that they didn't indicate what the grade level is. So that could be anything. So you have to, actually look at this. Could be something good, but it could be something terrible. And just because it's a high school resource that's made by a high school teacher doesn't mean it's terrible. You can always take it and adapt it, or use like the core of it. Maybe there's a video, maybe there's an article in there that you can use. Whatever. Okay, what's this here? Okay, so this is a module here. Now, it's the problem with looking at these here is you can't really see what it looks like. So what you really need to do in order to, see what it's actually going to look like inside of Canvas is you have to import it into a course. And so what I'm going to suggest you do is, if you have a Sandbox, I'm going to suggest that you import it into your Sandbox. Don't import it into a live class. If you don't have a Sandbox, import it into a class that you had maybe last semester, just because there could be some setting that you're not really sure about. And when these things get imported, they're all published. And so I wouldn't import it with, into a live class. So you just import, into your course. I'm not going to do this one. But then you can find your Sandbox, and I'll show you one of the ones that I imported last night. So this is a module that I imported from this fella. I changed my name right here. This is from this guy, this dude here. And he just put this up here. He's just allowing, it's just like any colleague, like, here's my stuff. You can use it if you want. You can, adapt it, edit it, throw it out, do whatever you want with it. I don't care. Okay, that's what he's doing. So now I can actually see what it's like. And it's not great. Okay, he's got these videos here with no, explanation. He's got this kind of discussion here, but it's got no, directions or anything. So I'm thinking he probably, this is probably like a synchronous course where he lectures and tells students what to do, but whatever. But I do want to show you that when I import things into this course, then what happens is this little attribution gets put on the bottom of the course right here. So, and this is all that I need. So now I'm set. Okay, I have my attribution. I can use any of this stuff and I'm good to go. I don't have to do anything else. Okay. Okay. Now the other thing that I wanted to show you is our this Canvas shell right here. And again, I have put that in the chat. If you go back up to right above Marvita's comment, you'll see the link to that. You should be able to get into it. Let me know if you can't. What I want to direct you to are the two buttons here, OER collections and sources by discipline. So you can start with either one, maybe start with sources by discipline. And I've got because this for some disciplines, this is going to eliminate a lot of work for many people. There are two great resources here. And this is a Google Doc here that is prepared and upkept by our colleague at Reedley College. And it has these disciplines listed in alphabetical order. So accounting, anatomy, art, and it goes down and just has, so for example, business, and then it's just a lot of different things here. You do have to kind of sort. Some of them are great. Some of them are, kind of repeated. It's a little messy, but there are a lot of, great things here. And again, some disciplines have a lot, some not so much. And then this is also a really good source here, and it has disciplines here, and then you can jump down and it has just a list. And what this guy did was he took all this stuff. Okay, what he did was he took all of this stuff on the these different questions and answers that that he found on the listserv, this OER listserv, and he just posted everything. So it's a little bit messy, but it is actually organized by discipline. So, you just find your discipline, what you're looking for, and there are some things there. Now, if you teach English, there is another resource, contact me. Actually, I'll just tell you, look on the Humanities Division Canvas page, or I can direct you to that because there's another source that I put there, and there's some more sources there. Okay, and then the other place that you can look is the OER collections. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's pretty exhaustive. There are going to be some things that pop up, here and there, but, we've got, Lumen, OER Commons, Cool for Ed, Merlot, Oasis. Those are all pretty good. You can get in there and you can search depending on what your discipline is. OpenStax is good for some disciplines. NOBA, good for psych, Writing Commons for English. For pictures, there should be plenty of open pictures. You don't have to steal pictures from online. You can find, open pictures. Open Oregon is a good one. So do spend some time going through these. I also want to bring your attention to the Fresno City College Library. So again, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the talk, but look at the library, use the library. And this is where I want to show you the LibGuides. Let's see if I've got it open here. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is on our library page. This is what LibGuides are, and I guess it's like a kind of a software that the library uses. And these are pages that the library actually prepares. Librarians actually prepare for themselves and for us. And so they just have a list here. Look, here's mine that Linda Kay made for me. And it looks like this. This was for my English 1A class. and she put this together. This took me probably about 45 minutes to just think about, and including 2 emails to her. I emailed her, I said what I'm kind of thinking. She emailed me back, and then I emailed her some clarification, and then she did this, I want to say within a day, maybe 2 at the max, okay? So I was doing an annotated bibliography for my class on social justice topic. So I told her I want definitions, I want more about it, I want a glossary of terms, I want a list of topics, and each one of these topics has at least, oh, you gotta log in. Each one of those topics has 2 articles that Linda found that are good for my students. Yeah, okay, see. Information about how to avoid plagiarism, how to make an annotated bibliography, and she did everything. She put it all up there for me. So that's something that I included in my course. Okay. So it looks like we are just about out of time. We've got about 5 more minutes. And yes, Linda Kay absolutely does rock. And although Donna C is no slouch either. Okay, let's see. I think if there are any questions, because we're just about out of time here. So let me see any questions about anything. Let me just look at my last little slide here. Yeah, and then you all know how to make Canvas quizzes, assignments, and discussions. So I'll let you do that. Okay. Okay, so I would really just want to challenge you again for this semester. You know, don't throw away your textbook. Don't rewrite your whole entire class. It's too much. It's too much for you. It's too much for your students right now. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to your students. But I really want to challenge you to add 1 or maybe 2 elements, 1 or 2 little resources or little assessments or little things that you can add to just really, supplement, places that are lacking in your course, places where you can, add something that's extra interesting, something that's going to help you hit those SLOs better in a more interesting way. Maybe include a video where you only had reading assignments, some kind of graphic information where you only had, reading or lecture assignments, something like that. Thinking about ways that you can give your students a better variety of materials. So if you can start to think in that way, and then you can take steps to each semester, expand that before you know it, it's just going to be, the OER is going to take over, and then you're going to be all done with your commercial textbooks, and then that's going to be it. And then we can just write them off. We don't have to use them anymore. So that's the ultimate goal, but it's too much to do it all at once. Okay. And so that's the end of my presentation. Again, so glad I could demystify this for you. Okay, thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions for Sally? Are we ready to end this and have our little break and go on to our next session? I'll leave it open for another minute just in case anyone wants to chime in with questions.
Darcy is saying thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Darcy. Good to see you.
Hello, Sally?
Yeah.
I've been multitasking while you were giving your presentation, so I apologize. Will we be getting a copy of the presentation, PowerPoint, or any documentation, have access to documentations afterwards?
Yeah, so as soon as I hit save on this bad boy, I can definitely send it to you, but Susie probably has like a more official way of doing that. I guess I can just, I don't see why I can't just throw it in the chat right now. Let me just see if I can find it here. What is this one called? Oh yeah, the alphabetical order. Yeah, and then as far as I do know on the, oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Okay, that should be coming through the chat right now. Do you see it?
Let me check. I saw something. Yeah, let's see here. Let me get to it.
Oh,
Yes,
and then
thank you
okay,
very
yeah,
much. Let me
okay.
download that.
Okay, and then the OER page.
I got it open. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then the OER Canvas page, let me put that in here again. So you should be, it's open, so you should be able to just go right to it. And yeah, the recordings should be up on the YouTube. And I think last semester, it took Susie about a week, maybe 2 weeks. So I think Susie takes a vacation the first week of the semester. So like next week she's off. And then the week after is when she puts everything up. So I believe that's her deal.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to rewatch, you probably want to rewatch.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Sally.
Appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end the presentation. I did add a link in the chat to the FlexDay website. And if you log in through there, go to your schedule, then find the session, you'll eventually get to where you can submit the session survey. And we really want to get everyone's feedback about today's sessions that you attend. And I think that's about it. Looks like our participant number is going down. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you to Stephen and Shannon for interpreting. And I hope the rest of you have an excellent Flex Day. I'm going to end the session. Bye all.